I remember, hey, what's important? What are you focused on? Are you spending your time well? Are you loving your wife well? Are you serving the Lord well? And those things help me to stay on target.
Welcome. As you can see, guys, not wearing a suit this time.
It's serious.
That means we're getting personal.
It's personal stuff, man.
We were talking through what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Before the show.
Yeah.
And we're about to get personal. So get comfortable, sit back, get your coffee.
Yeah.
Get some tissues maybe.
I don't know.
But won't need the notes because this one's all it's all you, man.
Cool.
So tell us something about you that most people wouldn't know or suspect.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about the way you asked that question is when I tell people about this, they typically say, oh, I would have never known or suspected that.
Right.
And that's that I have multiple sclerosis. I was diagnosed a couple years ago, and so it's a disease that I deal with on a daily basis. I have a spot in my vision that's right here, right here, and I have some other other things that go along with that as well. But
so for the viewers who don't know, what is MS?
MS is a neurological disorder. It's a disease where, like a piece of wire, your nerves have the nerve that runs through the center, and then the outside of the wire, the actual wire, is called a myelin sheath, which is similar to on a wire, the rubber coating that goes around it that keeps it from touching together. If you've ever done any home repair, or you've ever accidentally taken the jumper cables and switched them to the wrong side or something like that, the way it sparks, when the electrical current touches what it's not supposed to touch, things go haywire. And so that's the point of having a myelin sheath. Well, when you have multiple sclerosis, your body begins to fight itself and begins to break that down. And so a result of that is that there begins to be shorts in the wiring in your brain and in your spinal cord, causing all kinds of different troubles and struggles and things like that. And so that's, in a real basic way, what multiple sclerosis is.
Without being a medical professional.
Without being a medical professional.
That's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
So tell us about when you were given the diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
How did you know to go to the doctor? What was it that gave those signs and those symptoms? Yeah,
so it was weird. A combination of things, and I think that's pretty typical of how most people get diagnosed. For me, we had been wakeboarding, and it was summertime, and it was around the time that we had the eclipse, the solar eclipse. And I know that because after my diagnosis, or after I began having symptoms, people kept asking me, did you look at the sun during the eclipse? And I was like, no, I didn't look at the sun during the eclipse. Why would I do that? I did not do that. Yeah. My vision issue is definitely different. And so I couldn't really narrow it down, but what I had thought happened was I had taken a spill wakeboarding, and I always wear a helmet because I'm not that great of a wakeboarder to begin with. I just started a couple years ago. And two, I tend to try things that maybe I shouldn't, Well, my buddy,
to have fun on the wakeboard.
Yeah, and my buddy Billy is insane. He's so good. He's so good. And it's one of those things where if you surround yourself with people who are better than you, it motivates you to be better. Well, it's different when, you don't just, to quote Brian Earl Spillner, you don't just get in the ring with Ali because you think you box, right? There's a process to getting there. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I did, was I just go for it.
Right.
And I think I actually have a clip of when I wrecked. We named the trick the White Rainbow because I literally I whiplashed super hard, and again, even with a helmet on, my head I was shook. And so I thought I had a concussion or something was wrong. I had woken up, the next morning, and I was trying to read my Bible, and there was just a spot in the middle of my vision. And I was like, man, I can't focus. I get this spot, it won't go away. And so that was really kind of the beginning of my symptoms and how it started.
Like in your day to day, like that's got to have some kind of effect.
Yeah.
Like it's clearly, you mentioned like the vision. It seems like, when I first heard that you had an MS, I was like you said, most people are kind of shocked because one, I just don't really understand what it is. Didn't understand what it was.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you like push through, like you still hustle, to build your business, take care of your family, to build this legacy that you're building here. So like, how do you face it every day? Is there a process? Is there facing something like MS? That's not like having a cold where you're like, I have a migraine, so I can't work today. But you're like dealing with a neurological issue
every day,
every single day, and yet you're still hustling, putting out these videos. Obviously the real estate market.
Sure.
So how do you deal with it every day?
Yeah, I think for me, it's really in what you said about it, it's hustling, right? And my goal is to redefine what hustle means. We culturally, we have this idea around what hustling is, and I think it's wrong to a degree. I also think it's a bit ambiguous. It's like just do stuff, and that's hustle. And to me, and it helps that I have this disease because I have to have balance in my life. If I don't, the symptoms get dramatically worse, and I suffer from additional stuff on top of what I have on a day-to-day. It exacerbates it, makes it worse. And so balance is super important for me. And so for me, understanding what hustle really is and defining it within the parameters of how I'm able to actually work. We talked about this in one of the previous episodes about defining success so that you know what success is, so that you know that you've achieved something, so you have that internal valuation of yourself in what you've accomplished. Well, to me, understanding those things help me to understand that this doesn't label me. This doesn't make me someone other than human who is struggling with a flesh that is decaying over time and will eventually come to an end. It's a constant reminder for me of that, which I think can be helpful and can be hurtful. But for me, I have to remember, hey, what's important? When the spot in my vision or the pain in my leg and those things become worse, I remember, hey, what's important? What are you focused on? Are you spending your time well? Are you loving your wife well? Are you serving the Lord well? And those things help me to stay on target. And I've mentioned this before too. These are all things that I live by. Who am I becoming in the process? Through all of these things, who am I becoming?
Yeah.
Because that becoming someone different than you are today helps you to be better tomorrow. It helps you to achieve the goal that you want at the end. If all you're focused on is the goal at the end and you're never really understanding who you're becoming through the process, then all you ever get is the goal at the end. Yeah. But if you focus on this too, if you're reminded of how you're changing and how you're getting better on a daily basis, you have small wins. And so all of that really to say that those are pieces of it for me, where when those things arise, when those struggles come, when those problems present themselves, I remember the wins.
Yeah.
I remember the accomplishments thus far, and I remember that I'm not in a wheelchair. I don't have a cane. I'm able to control my body 95% of the time, and those are wins. Those are places to be focused on and be grateful for.
Yeah. So, so if you could say something to viewers that have a condition or a disability or something that that they might see as a roadblock. We all have like speed bumps on our way to success, but then there's some people who have a roadblock.
Yeah.
That's like, how do I overcome this thing? Like, I love how you said, this is not, I don't know if this is exactly the same, but you made the point like that, like MS is not the entirety of your identity, and that you were talking about redefining hustle. And how, like, essentially activity without productivity is empty. Like, if you're not being productive, you're just doing stuff. You're not really working towards anything.
Right.
And so, like, having a goal to work towards that's outside of yourself, but being faced with a roadblock. If you could speak to the viewers or listeners that have a condition or a diagnosis or a disability, like to encourage them, what would you say?
First and foremost, where you are today, the pain you feel right now, the struggle that you have in your life in this very moment will not last forever. It's not forever. And so you have to in order to see that it's not forever, you have to get past it. You have to get over the speed bump. You have to get around the roadblock. And I think specifically taking all of those ideas from before about renewing your mind, having people around you who are going to encourage you, thinking on the things that you're grateful for, recognizing who you are by God's standard and not your own, those things are going to make a difference. They are going to help you to get around them. And I think of Moses, right? Where Moses legitimately did have some roadblocks and barriers that he didn't control. And then he had some of his own. He started to make excuses for himself. Right? God called him to something and he's like, yeah, but I can't do this. I can't. And God's like, I called you to it. That means you're going to do it. I'll give you what you need to do it, right? Yeah. So we can make it easier on ourselves by not setting up additional roadblocks or adding to the roadblock that's there by talking about how we're inadequate. And that's what we have to do. That's what we've got to remember. That's what we've got to work toward is knowing that roadblocks are temporary. That tomorrow you'll be past the way you feel today, and that's proof that this feeling today in this moment is not forever. And so get past that, and that'll be progress. Actually, I think of a sermon that one of my mentors, Pastor Jason Mills, did, where he showed an NPR video of a study that was done that they did a bunch of different studies, but in one of them they took a guy and they blindfolded him on one end of the road and said, walk through this empty field in a straight line to the other side until you hit the road, right? They blindfolded him and he walked, and as he walked forward, and then he began to turn, and he just literally walked through this field in circles until he ended up back at the same place he started from. And he would have walked from one end to the other 5 times for the amount of distance he covered walking in circles. But because he couldn't see where he was going, he didn't have his eyes fixed on something else, he just walked in circles. And I think that's how we can live our lives if we aren't focused on something at the other end. If we don't have some sort of vision of where we want to go and who we want to be in the end, recognizing that who we're becoming in the process gets us closer to where we want to be in the end.